Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to The Caring Economy with me, your host, Toby Usnik. We're now in our 19th season and going from strength to strength. I want to just say how excited I am today to chat with someone who's really been just touched millions of lives across film, television, theater, and well, beyond that even. It's Bruce Cohen, and he's here with us today. If you've ever been moved by a powerful film like American Beauty or Milk or Silver Linings Playbook, then you've experienced Bruce's knack for both telling stories that matter and getting us behind them. He is winner of both Oscars and Tonys. Bruce is also a passionate activist and advocate, someone who's not only been behind the camera and on Broadway, but has also been out front, championing the arts on a national stage and even more. But titles and awards only tell part of his story. Bruce's impact comes equally from the care and purpose he pours into each project, everything he does, whether he's helping make a history of a live television event, producing thought-provoking theater, or fighting for representation and inclusion in every space he enters, including our federal government. And he does this all while both building a life in New York City and sharing it with his husband and daughter, both of whom I adore and had the privilege of being with on many occasions. And it's grounded in family, community, and the belief that the stories can fully change the world for the better. Bruce, thanks for joining us. Let's get started. As we always do here, I want to ask you to maybe give us a 3 to 5 minute digest of your life, kind of where you got started, how you found your way, maybe any pivots along the way, mentors or shout outs. Over to you, my friend.
Thank you, Toby, and thank you for that beautiful introduction. So, I was born in Falls Church, Virginia, outside of Washington, D.C., suburb. I got my lifelong love of politics and activism from growing up in D.C. My mom let me stay home from junior high school and watch the Watergate hearings from gavel to gavel when I was in eighth grade because she knew I was more interested in that and would get a better education seeing that than I would get from those 2 weeks of junior high school. So the die was cast pretty early for me as far as that side of things go. I also had a love of film since I was a little kid when I was nominated for the Oscar for American Beauty and had the great joy of hearing from everyone in my life. One of my friends said to me, Bruce, we always knew you were going to be in film. You made us make a movie for our eighth grade algebra project. And I had forgotten about that, but I was like, oh, I guess I did. So those two passions for storytelling and for activism have really been the hallmark of my whole life and career. I just turned 64 yesterday. And so it's been gratifying to look back and see all the ways that those two strains value added to each other. I do really feel at this point like I have two full-time jobs. And what I give up is hobbies. I don't really have any hobbies. I have my two jobs, which I sort of consider count as hobbies because I love them so much. And then the rest of my time is taken up by actually having free time and relaxing and being a husband and a father, which is not always relaxing. And I will say that I really feel like having these joint careers in entertainment and in politics and activism, the first one of which hopefully pays you some of the time, the second of which does not ever, at least not the way I do it. They've really been incredibly complementary and helpful to me being in both. I have lots of different ways where I can see that my career as a producer is much stronger because of the connections I made and the work I'm doing in the activist side, and certainly a good deal of the connections and contacts and access that I have on the political activism side to get shit done is because of what I've done in Hollywood and the films I've made and who I know. And I've been happily shameless in using that. If that's what gets me in the door so that I have a platform to try and make the world a better place, I'm going to use that every time I can. And I'll say that a foundational mentor of mine, kind of the foundational mentor of mine on the film side, is Steven Spielberg. who I feel is the best foundational mentor you could possibly have. I think most people would accept him as their foundational mentor if they were given the opportunity. I got that opportunity in a combination of extreme luck, which I then realized it was my moment to convert it into something. And so I made sure to do the most extraordinary job I possibly could for him and the team, his team that I worked for. But it came to pass on The Color Purple, the original version of the film that he directed in 1985. I was 24 at the time. I was in a program called the Directors Guild training program that trains you to be an assistant director, which are the people with walkie-talkies that run around organizing things. And I got the very lucky opportunity. I only got the interview to apply for the job on The Color Purple because I happened to have called the director of the program that morning and asked if she had anything available. But then once I had the chance to interview, and once I learned that the movie I was going in to interview for was The Color Purple, directed by Steven Spielberg, I really dropped everything I was doing and focused every single thing I could figure out to focus, every single asset at my disposal to try and get that job. And then once I was able to land the job, as I said, I really committed myself to doing the best job possible. And that ended up resulting in a lifelong, beautiful, both friendship and working relationship with Steven, who's also been an incredible model on the politics and activist side, because no one puts his money where his mouth is or is more of a mensch as far as working to make the world a better place constantly. Then Steven had the most beautiful and blessed and unbelievable sort of summation of that to date when I received the National Medal of Arts from President Biden at the White House last year. Hasn't even been a year yet, which is crazy because so much has happened since last October. So, and then when I got to DC to receive that award, I found out that one of my fellow award recipients was Steven. And I couldn't possibly have imagined in my entire life, like if you had written the script and that had been, people would have been like, oh, that's too much. You can't say you and Steven got the same award 40 years later. But in fact, that's what happened. And while he and I were chatting at the White House before we went to receive our awards, I was standing there when a White House aide ran up to him very excited and said, Mr. Spielberg, Mr. Spielberg. And he's like, yes. And they said, we just realized that now that you've received the Presidential Medal of the Arts, you had also previously received the Presidential Medal of the Humanities from Clinton and the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Obama. And you're the first person ever in history to receive all those three awards, which I mentioned as proof that he's as good a social activist, humanitarian model as there could ever be. So, yeah, that's a little snapshot of my life story to date.
So, first of all, happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you.
Secondly, I've got to hear 10 seconds of how does one bring algebra to life in a film? And then we'll get to Spielberg.
Yeah, I remember like filming it. We were at our house. We were using my parents' bedroom for the set for some reason, which they probably didn't know about. I remember there were subtitles. We were writing the algebra problems, but how we justified doing a film and what the characters were playing, I can't tell you. I'm sorry to say. And sadly, the print of that film has been lost to history.
Oh, well, maybe we'll recreate it with AI. I have to tell you, though, that's proof positive that the die was cast for you as a storyteller and a filmmaker. With now going back to the Spielberg trifecta, there's got to be the EGOT equivalent of that, right? I wonder what it is called in government.
It's funny. We made it up right on the spot because then the person ran away and Steven was deeply honored and excited, as you would imagine. He didn't know he was the only person that got all three. And so I was like, that's like the EGOT of politics. And so we were thinking, and we decided FAH, F-A-H. Freedom, Arts, and Humanities. So awesome. Steven, who's not an EGOT yet, ridiculously, because I don't think he has a Grammy. He is the only FAH at the moment.
Good for him. So I want to stick with the larger category of film, television, entertainment, and just open up by asking you to demystify it. Tell us what's like, it's glorified, it's celebrated in film, television, other ways, but are there any real myths that the average person like me wouldn't know versus the civilians don't understand?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main myth is just how hard people work, the time and energy and manpower that goes into the creation of a film or television show or theater production is pretty much unimaginable unless you've been there and watched it on your for yourself. That's a common theme for when guests visit a set is two things. Number one, how hard everyone's working, and but number two is how long it takes and how much time there is in between each shot. Everyone who comes is always like, what is this waiting around? Everyone's just standing around for 2 hours. And the reason why it appears that way to the layperson is because to get each and every shot ready, so much preparation is happening behind the scenes in so many different departments involving hundreds of crew members, and everything has to be prepared for that shot. Not only does the checklist of 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 elements that needs to come together for every shot to be ready to shoot, but those elements all have to happen in the right order, or else the whole thing can collapse and you'd have to start over again. So I think that's the common misconception. There are a few people at the top who, due to their success, are extraordinarily wealthy and make an extraordinarily large amount of money. But the vast majority of the people that work to bring you your entertainment every day are blue collar, hardworking, mostly union member Americans who believe in the power of storytelling every bit as much as the movie stars and directors and producers, and work their asses off to make you laugh and make you cry and move you and hopefully change hearts and minds on certain projects.
Can you extrapolate on that vis-a-vis theater then? Because you worked fluidly, effortlessly between the two. You don't have with theater the ability to do multiple takes. So same kind of preparation I mentioned goes into it, but it just plays out differently. Is there a easier way, so to speak, or less understood way?
Well, one of the things that I love about producing, and something that I've been very fortunate to be able to do, but have really leaned into because I love it so much, is producing in all different mediums. I think producing is very much misunderstood in and of itself. And one simple way to understand what a producer does, which is a question everyone's always asking, and I get asked all the time. Kathy Kennedy, who was another amazing mentor of mine, who started out producing for Steven Spielberg's, and now she runs Lucasfilm. She explained it to me that the producer is really the CEO of the company that has been formed to make the film or television show. And actually, as a official business entity, every film and television show that gets made, in addition to the studio that it's at or the network it's at, or the whoever's writing the check, you still have to form, usually an LLC, sometimes it's a different type of corporation depending on the state, a specific business entity that is making only that one film or that one television show. And the producer is really the CEO of that entity. You're in charge of both the creative and the budget and scheduling and business and practical side as well. So it's an extremely left brain, right brain job, which is that was one of the things that I love about it. The cliche is that it's called show business for a reason, because there's the show and there's the business. And an operating principle of producing that I believe in is that every single problem that needs to be solved, which there can be thousands of them almost in a day, you only have the right answer if it works for both sides of the equation. You can have the most brilliant creative idea in the world. If you don't have the money to do it or the time to get it done, it's of no use whatsoever. And on the other side, you can come up with plans to your blue in the face that work for the budget and the schedule. If they're going to make your project not as good or hurt the ultimate quality or the message, you might as well throw it out and start over. So you're constantly trying to make sure that you're supporting both sides of the equation. And in capital letters, I would propose to you and our listeners, that's a model that should be followed in every single thing every single day in every single job across the world. And in fact, when you get up out of bed every morning, you are the producer of your day. Producing is one of the most valuable tools you can possibly have. Everything needs producing, from your own schedule each day to film, television shows. And this is getting back to my point. Part of why I've stayed in it so long and love it so much and I'm still so passionate about it is all the variety of things I've produced. Musicals, non-musicals, stage, marches, live events, protests, rallies, memorial services. Everything needs producing, and I love producing as wide a range of things as possible. And what's exciting about that to me is that a lot of the core principles of every single thing you're producing is the same, but each new thing you produce also has a whole different set of rules and tasks. And theater is a huge example of that, because the fact that in theater, what you're producing, when the curtain goes up, it has to keep going on its own until the curtain goes down. There's no retakes, there's no do-overs, there's no hold for a minute, let's fix that. Sometimes in an emergency, you'll hear if something goes wrong or if there's an issue, sometimes you'll hear the stage manager will come out over the mic and say, hold please. It actually happened last night at the show I was seeing. It was an outdoor venue and it started pouring rain. So they had to hold please for the rain to stop. So the producing aspects of the job to create something that runs nonstop from the time the curtain goes up to the time the curtain goes down is in some ways completely different from film and television, where you can cut the camera and start over whenever the hell you want to. But in other ways, the core principles of what you're trying to do and how you do it are the same.
Yeah. Well, I like this concept. I think of it as calibration, right? You've got to kind of almost like riding a surfboard or being on skis. You've got to be balancing back and forth while going through time and space. I also think I agree with you. It's a great way to approach life because there's no dress rehearsals, as they say. But also, if all of us could do a little bit more of that sort of calibration, I think it would help us in the national dialogue, which we'll get to in a second, about seeing each other, hearing each other, and being in dialogue versus chaos or discord.
Well, and I'll also add on the calibration that resonates with me, because a principle that I've been leading into really just in the last year or two, maybe longer, but it's really working for me and I really like it and I want to share it with all of you, is that there actually is no, here's the hypothesis. There actually is no pushing the rock uphill. The rock, by definition, is actually not going to get pushed uphill. So trying to push the rock uphill is actually futile. And what you want to be doing instead is creating opportunities and looking for a way to either push the rock sideways across the flat, or even better, push the rock downhill. And if you're really looking for success in whatever task you're trying to do or whatever project you're trying to advance, you're wanting to create ways and opportunities to push the rock sideways or downhill, and trying to avoid and trying to get yourself out of situations where you're pushing the rock uphill. Try it and see if you like it.
Yeah,
I
well,
like
I'm
it.
sort of reminded that old spiritual is so high, can't get over it, so round, can't get around it. So can't get under, gotta go in through the door. Like,
Yes.
find a new way
Love
to
that.
do
Absolutely right. Same idea.
it. Well, I love that you give people methods or ways and inspiration to do just that in all the different films. Let's go to that conversation around activism and storytelling. First of all, what's your sort of creative process? How do you pick and choose what you work with? Because I know things must be coming over the transom to you all the time, but then you probably just are walking down the street and a light bulb goes off and says, oh my gosh, there's a story there that I want to tell.
Well, I'm looking for two things at the outset, and they kind of connect to the left brain, right brain idea of producing. Is number one, I deeply, passionately, and personally fall in love with the idea or the script or the play or whatever I'm looking at. And there's an alchemy to that that can't be predicted. That's a deeply personal thing that every person has. And for me, I'm very fortunate to be at a place in my career where I can keep that bar high. I try and only produce things that I'm deeply in love with and passionate about for one reason or another. And part of that also is practical, is that I've learned over the years, one of your jobs as a producer is that you are a salesman. There's a bit of a car salesman in all of us. And I have learned that only if I am deeply, passionately in love with the material am I a good salesman. And if I am, then I'm a fantastic salesman.
Yeah.
I am not good at pretending I like something when I don't. In some ways, I wish I had that skill. I know a lot of great friends, great producers, great people who are great salesmen, and they can sell something whether they personally relate to it or not. I actually can't. I'm a terrible salesman if I'm not in love with something myself. So I'm sort of stuck to begin with, that I can only and only want to take on projects that I am deeply passionate about and love. And that connects then to the second thing, though, is that I have to feel like I have a way to actually get it made on the business side of things. I get a lot of projects these days that I'm personally in love with, but due to the current state of the market or the entertainment industry, I just don't know how I would ever get it made. And so I have to pass on those projects. And on the other hand, I get sent a lot of projects that I totally can see how this project is going to get financed and to get into theaters. I just don't love it enough to do that personally. So that's sort of my bar as far as what the projects are that I take on.
Yeah.
Oh, did I answer your question? I feel
Yeah.
like that was maybe a bridge to your question, and I had
No,
some
I
other
think you
thing to
did,
say.
because I would say for me, it's all about purpose. I think you have your purpose. It's a twofold thing for you, but really, I see you as being very on mission, doing what you do, and everything reinforces the other. So that to me makes one straight shooting guy, either get on board and get with me or get out of the way because I'm going somewhere. So when you
Although I do remember you were asking me about activism and social justice and the connection. And I will say to that the aforementioned Mr. Spielberg, one of the many, 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 many great pieces of advice he's given me that I've stuck with. And a lot of times it wasn't directed personally at me. I'm just in a meeting or in a group and I hear him say something and I'm like, I will take that with me for my entire life. And one of them was that the primary job of stories is to entertain, that you have to entertain people no matter what you're doing. And the minute they feel like they're being preached to, that you've stopped entertaining and now you're trying to teach them a lesson, they're running for the hills.
Yeah.
So whenever you are, even when you have a project that you are hoping to change hearts and minds, the way you're going to do that is to move people, to make them laugh, to make them cry, to make them think, but to entertain them. And correlation of that for me is not every project I take on has at its core the idea that you're going to try and change hearts and minds, move people on a specific issue. I love to do both. I love projects that have that goal, and that's been something that I am proud to have become known for. And so I get a lot of those projects and I lean into those, and I always have a lot of those projects that I'm developing. But I'm also love a project that just entertains. One of the things I'm most proud of, that people love the most of all the things I've done, is the television series Pushing Daisies. And that was just to bring joy into people's lives.
Yes, effectively. Well, so Milk and Rustin come to mind to me for activism type stuff, but then even I would argue even American Beauty, right? Like that was a entertaining way to educate people, right, about the other. So is it a collaborative process? Do you have the whole thing already set in your mind when you take on the script to the project, or how do you build the final product?
It's always film and television and theater are extremely collaborative mediums, but so are all the things I produce. I mean, any project I'm working on in the activist, social justice, political space, also, that's the sort of
Big
core
surprise. Yeah.
brilliance of humanity, is our ability to collaborate with each other and to work together to hopefully create something that's better than the sum of its parts could ever be. And as a producer, that's actually our our main job is to be facilitating that collaboration. As far as the actual making of the product, we don't have a specific role ourselves. We're not directing it. We didn't write it. We're not acting in it. We're not lighting it. We're not designing the sets. We're not designing the costumes. What we are doing is facilitating all of those people, trying to get everyone to be working together towards the same goal and the shared vision as much as humanly possible to create the best thing you possibly can. And in a lot of ways, not completely, but in a lot of ways, it's really the director's job, first and foremost, to set the vision. And then the producer is there to facilitate the creative vision of the director and also to translate that into the budget and the schedule. Because as we said before, if you can't afford it or don't have time to do it, then it's not helpful. One story that I will always carry with me that I love to describe this is at the spoiler alert, if you haven't seen American Beauty, at the end of American Beauty, Lester Burnham gets shot. And there's a shot where he's lying on the kitchen, he's slumped over on the kitchen counter, and the blood is seeping away from his head. And you hear Kevin Spacey, who plays the role, his voiceover that's going to carry you to the final moments of the movie starts in that shot. You're hearing him from beyond the grave because you're looking at him dead. And because the blood, we realized as the shot before it ended, and we were going to now begin the hour-long process to set for this shot, because it was a really important shot in the film, we realized that oftentimes in lighting, actors have what are called a stand-in, and the stand-in is there, and they look as much like the actor as possible, and you light the whole shot and get the whole shot ready with the stand-in, and then at the last, when you're ready to shoot, the stand-in leaves and the actor comes in. But on this shot, because Kevin was lying on the table and the blood was going to be seeping out, he had to be there from the beginning and through the whole lighting and so that the blood could be set, so that everything could be ready, so that we could shoot. And about 15 minutes before we were fully ready, I walked onto the set, and the tableau was so beautiful and so striking. And the combination, every element, the script, which got us there, Sam's direction, which set the shot, the lighting, the special effects people who had done the blood, the costume, the set, everything had come together so beautifully that I literally gasped the power of the image. And I saw strong evidence that the vision of the movie was in everyone's heads.
Wow.
Sam had spread his vision into all the departments to such an extent that without even communicating, they had all come together
At that
to
moment.
produce this tableau. And I actually kind of burst into tears. And gave me chills. It moved me so much because I saw this moment and I understood how we had got there and why we had gotten there.
Electrifying, truly, truly. I think that what you're describing is what makes you so special, that you can both help make that happen, but then also communicate it, make it available more broadly. I think that's one of your gifts. I wonder, though, in addition to sharing your works with others and you catalyze hopefully good in people and understanding, how else, particularly with this younger generation, people always want to complain about, which I don't necessarily do. You've got a teenage daughter. How do you get the uninitiated or the uncaring or the passive or the disinterested engaged in anything from working on a film set to showing up at a march to maybe just putting their hands up to say, I want to be a part of this?
I would propose that one of the primary ways to motivate people is storytelling. It is that entertaining factor. And by entertaining, I'm not talking about just frivolous. I'm talking about the larger idea of entertaining, in that it engages you. It's entertainment that engages you, and entertainment can encompass all film, all television, all theater, documentary. So I'm using entertaining people in the larger way that Spielberg was using it.
Yep.
And storytelling is the universal language, the universal way to move people, to connect people, to involve people. You need to make, by making people laugh or making people cry or giving people an emotion, giving a shared emotion, if everyone's sitting together in a movie theater or in a theater watching live stage or any performance, that is how you connect people in. And that has gotten harder. It's not even generational, it's just the reality as things have moved online and as people are getting more and more of their content on their phones or even in their homes. There's a real sadness to that and a real challenge to that, because the spaces where people are communally gathered to allow themselves to laugh or to cry or to be moved are getting smaller. And that's a huge problem. And I think something we have to turn around. But that doesn't mean that storytelling can't be done by yourself watching on your phone, because it does. And the
Absolutely.
content that people love and the content that spreads and the content, if you're trying to change people's minds, that change people's minds is the content that makes you laugh or makes you cry or tells you a story that you're engaged in. So the importance and power of storytelling has never been more vital and more crucial. And I'd also posit storytelling always has its most necessary and most important moments in the dark times, in the hard times, in the scary times. When everything's happy and everything's fine, which hardly has ever happened in history anyway, you know, people might not need a good laugh or a good cry or a good story as much. It's when things get frightening is when we need that the most. And we're in one of those times right now. If anything is going to get us through, which I think is an open question as to whether we will get through, but let's hope we do. And I do. If I had to bet on it, I would bet that we would.
Yep.
Storytelling is part of the key things that's going to do it.
Yeah. And you have to your point about where people are spending their time, you need to meet people where they are, right? The storytelling happening on TikTok is pretty influential right now, right? And it's not all fluff, I find. So I'm with you there. I wonder if we talk about polarization across the nation. Storytelling is one way to do it for sure. But particularly when you're talking to your friends in Washington, without naming names, or you can if you want, like you're dealing with the power brokers who have to not only in public but behind the scenes be brokering a way forward in this era of intransigence. And I wonder, how do we do it? I always suggest things like sports and entertainment and dogs, pets. People, if you're if you love Jack Russells, they don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. They know you love Jack Russells. In other words, there's much that binds us or brings us together, but that's not getting the attention right now. I wonder what sort of tricks of the trade you have for getting the other to meet you halfway or partway.
Well, I've been thinking a lot about this and working a lot on this, and with a lot of smart people in the arts and humanities space, because the arts and the humanities are completely under attack in the United States right now. Funding's being pulled, free speech is being shut down. It's a incredibly desperate moment for the arts and the humanities. And that is even scarier and more pathetic and should be more infuriating than you might think, because arts and the humanities are actually one of our primary ways to bring people together and a unifying force daily, whether we understand it or not, which I will get into in a moment. So this idea that the arts and the humanities somehow got lumped in with the left, got lumped in with woke, and got lumped in with the polarization is a flawed and completely wrong premise to
Agreed.
begin with. And what I've been thinking a lot about, and you mentioned sports, and I feel like sports and movies in theaters are two instances where every single day in this country, and I'll switch to movie theaters for a moment, every single day, 7 to 10 times a day, in thousands of movie theaters all across the country, in every state, people are sitting down together to have a communal experience with a film. It's happening right now in all 50 states. Maybe not yet in California because it's too early in the morning. It's a little early in the morning, but who knows when you'll be listening to this podcast. In almost every single one of those audiences, no matter where they are, there are people of both political persuasions sitting there. And
Absolutely.
they are having a communal experience. They are, in the certain cases, with a lot of the movies, loving the same things, laughing or crying at the same moments. And we're not capturing that. I've been thinking, no one knows that. No one's really talking about it. No one's thinking about it. But these unified moments that we're so desperate for, they're actually happening hourly in every one of the 50 states. But no one knows that. You're not thinking when you're crying at your favorite huge hit movie each weekend, or laughing that the person sitting next to you might be from the complete opposite persuasion from you. And you're certainly not, at the end of the movie, stopping to have conversations with everyone in the audience and finding out who's MAGA, and learning, to your shock, that they love the same things about the film that you did. So that's one of the things I'm thinking about and talking about is, is there a way to shine a light on that and to start having those conversations that we actually already have these unifying moments? We're just not. In fact, we're sort of doing the opposite, is we're leaving politics out of those spaces, which in another time and in theory is kind of how it should be. But in this current time, we may need to figure out a way to let all the sports fans know of any team. Sports are the same way. Every single team has rabid fans on both sides, and they're sitting next to each other, cheering and screaming at the games each week, but we're not making those connections.
And you know what? Literally, in many cases, they have money in the game, right? Like these are. It's not about the politics at all. It's about the sport itself, or the spectacle itself. Which I'm with you on that.
I took my daughter and her friend for her birthday in May to Disney World in Florida, and on a Saturday, and I noticed, like, an hour or two in, there's no political. I haven't seen a single
Yep.
MAGA hat. Haven't seen a single left T-shirt. And then once I noticed it, I started watching. And flag, which sadly, and as you know, I did work on a documentary on the subject, but the American flag has really become a symbol of the right and a weapon of the right in many ways. There were not even any American flags displayed.
Yeah.
And then I watched it all day, and of the 50,000, I don't know how many people are in Disney World each day, but it's a huge number. I did not see a single insignia or sign of politics from either side on anyone the entire day. And I was like, oh, somehow everyone got the memo. Like, there's something just ingrained in us,
Yeah.
this feeling that Disney World is for everyone and should be a safe space. And there was some conversation among all sorts of Americans that morning who ordinarily would wear the T-shirt or the hat on one side or another. And they actually, all of them, decided not to,
Yeah.
and to come to Disney World to share something together. So but interestingly, then the next step of that is, as beautiful and powerful as that is, but like, let's go to the next step of, if we've all somehow subliminally deciding on our own to let Disney World be the safe space and to not bring our politics into it, wouldn't it be amazing to have some type of moment at the end of the day where we all could admit that we're on opposite sides of the spectrum and we could all meet each other
Yeah.
and could all bond around loving the same rides and the same experiences and having had such a great day at the place.
At the happiest place on earth.
The happy place on earth, which, yeah, you know what? That could be the memo. It's like, oh,
That
this is the
is what
happiest
they
place on
claim.
earth.
So,
I'm gonna make someone else sad if I have my MAGA hat on, so I'm not gonna wear my MAGA hat. Now,
well, I'm going to
has no one
research.
ever worn a MAGA hat at Disneyland? I'm sure they have, Disney World, but I didn't see one
Well,
that day, and I was looking because I noticed it at 11 a.m. And for the next 6 hours, I was determined to find someone who hadn't gotten the memo, and I didn't find a single
wow.
person.
Now you piqued my curiosity. I'm going to research that. That actually ties to my last question for you, which is basically Disney's under attack today because they have reinstated Kimmel, and there's suggestions of retribution from the administration, and one needs to brace for it. I did like that Mike Eisner came out last week with a full throttle rebuttal of what was happening when taking him off the air, and I'd like to think that they're going to stick to it, but these are dangerous times, and those parks could become subject to some kind of government scrutiny or licensing issues. I don't know what. So this is really information real time right now, but I'm hopeful that it will remain the happiest place on earth and that Jimmy Kimmel will keep on doing what he's meant to do. Any reflections on that particular topic?
Yeah, I mean, I think Disney shit the bed last week. I'm sorry to say, because, and I think in particular, I found Bob Iger's handling of the situation um, unexplainable and inexcusable
Yep.
because he's a brilliant man. He's a strategist. He's a Democrat, and he's a student of history. So when he heard the threat from Carr at the FCC, he understood what this moment of history was.
Yep.
He understood that his choice was either to stand up against censorship, against tyranny, against authoritarianism, or to cave into it. And you can justify your decisions, the business, the stock market. It's not me. I have a company to worry about. I have a brand, on and on and on and on. But you can never abdicate your personal responsibility. And personal responsibility is the only way we're going to survive. And so I want to challenge all of us out there when you're in one of those moments of like, oh, I now have to decide personally how I'm responding. You don't want it. You don't like it. It's a pain in the ass. It could have huge consequences for you. That's not the question. The question is, it has been forced upon you. And in those moments, the more of us that are individually able to stand up, that's how we're going to save our democracy.
Yep.
And if enough people cave, we're going to lose our democracy.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Bruce, I'm mindful of the time. I want to ask you my last question I always ask my guests, which you've shared so many today, pearls of wisdom. As you reflect back on your life, your career, any sort of tips or pearls or lessons that you find yourself sharing regularly that you'd like to share with our audience about, I would say, leading and living a purpose-driven life and career?
I think one primary lesson for me that I try and keep a guiding principle that I have with me always is that the thing I love, one of the many, many, many things I love about producing is that producers are the only people on the project that don't also have their own agenda. And what I mean by that is the director, the writer, the actors, and all the departments, and then every single employee on the entire production is in one department or another. And all those people and all those departments have two agendas. Number one is what's best for the film or television show or theater. But number two is what is best for their job, their department. And that's real and legitimate. They're hired in their contract. Their job is to deliver for their department, to make the best costumes for the budget and the schedule, to give the best performance, to direct the best film. They all have that agenda, and it's real. And on the days and in the hours and in all the situations where the personal agenda you have that you're getting paid to do for your job matches the agenda for what's best for the film, those are the happy times. But often when you feel, or your boss feels, or your department feels that what's best for your department is, for whatever reason, again, you didn't choose it, but you're here, is at odds with what's best for the film, those are the hard times. And the only exception to that is the producer. The producer has only one agenda, which is what is best for the film. Our job is the same as what is best for the film. And what I internalized and extrapolated to my core from that over the years was this realization of, oh, that also means that we don't actually have an ego around our work, because we have no agenda for ourselves or our department and our job. Our only agenda is what's best for the film. So anytime there's a conflict, anytime any other department is having this issue of not sure what's right, our job as the producer is to listen and to hear, what's the problem? How do you feel? Why are you conflicted? What do you think the solution is? And on a film or television show or theater, it's never in a bubble. The problem that that person or department is having is always connected to one or two, or more likely 10 other people in 10 other departments, because it's all intertwined.
Yeah.
So then you're needing to hear from everyone, and you're needing to listen without an ego, because it doesn't matter what you think first. It matters what everyone else thinks. And then eventually it's your job to have an opinion. Once you've listened without ego, and once you've collected all the information, then you're making the hard sometimes decision for what you feel is best for the project based on the combined show and business. So that lesson of trying to put your ego aside whenever you can, or at least be aware of how much of this is my ego and how much of this is my agenda, and how much of this is actually honestly looking at what's best for whatever situation I'm in. That's the lesson producing gave me, that I try and take with me every single moment that I can remember to do it.
You know, you make a great case for the importance of critical thinking, and it's a topic that schools and employers are now investing more than ever in. We've got to all try to be more critical in the objective sense of what we do and how we hear others, listen, engage with others. So I think those are great, great words of wisdom, not surprising coming from you. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Bruce Cohen for joining us today. He is a producer extraordinaire, film, television, theater, rallies, protests. I love the activist in him. I love the creator in him. And I'm so grateful, Bruce, for your sharing time with us today, and hope you'll come back. Tell us one last thing. What are you working on next?
I am working on a film that I'm super excited about that I can't talk about yet. And as soon as I can, I will. But it's a dream come true in some ways, as far as some of the people I get to work with. So it's getting me up in the morning with great excitement and enthusiasm.
And without giving too much away, I know a little bit about it. I know it includes one of our favorite actresses with many awards on her cabinet shelf. So, Bruce Cohen, thank you so much, and come back.
Thank you, Toby. Love being with you today.